Most sailors mocked the 19-foot West Wight Potter, calling it a floating bleach bottle. Too small, too light, just a toy for weekend sailors. It fits in a garage and costs less than the chart plotter on a modern yacht. But Bill Teplow disagreed. He did not chase fame. He needed to commute, so he doubled the keel's writing moment with a homemade 150-pound lead bulb and set out to cross 2,100 miles of open Pacific in what critics said could not survive a squall. If size equals safety, why did this bathtub make it to Hawaii and arrive with 0 failures, while yachts worth hundreds of times more have been left in pieces? Here is the uncomfortable physics behind the voyage that threatened an entire industry's assumptions. At the dock, the West Wight Potter 19 barely casts a shadow. It sits on a trailer, wheels tucked under a hull that weighs just 1,225 pounds, less than a family sedan. The cabin juts up like a forehead, 5 feet of headroom squeezed into a box that looks more like a toy than a tool. Critics don't hold back. They call it a coffin with a mast, a flat-bottomed death trap. The boat's beam is just 7.5 feet, and the hull's hard Chinese give it the stance of a plastic lunchbox. The kick-up rudder is designed for beaching, not blue water. The stock lifting keel is only 370 pounds, barely more than a stack of gym weights. You can park it in a garage, hitch it to a compact car, and launch it at a lake ramp next to jet skis. Dealers market it as the ultimate trailer sailor for day trips and lazy weekends. No one at a yacht club mistakes it for an ocean commuter. The Potter's reputation is set: a floating bleach bottle, a bathtub for amateurs, something you buy when you can't afford a real boat. That stigma carries weight. In a world obsessed with length and displacement, the Potter is the punchline. The boat you buy if you want to be laughed at by people polishing their teak decks. And yet, under the surface, there's a hidden logic to this ugly little hull, something the critics never bother to measure. Bill Teplow looked at the factory stock keel and saw a problem, not a punchline. The standard lifting fin, barely 370 pounds of ballast, was fine for a picnic on the bay, but the Pacific is a different animal. Out there, the waves do not care about marketing copy. They care about leverage. They care about torque. So Teplow went to work. He bolted a 150-pound lead bulb to the base of the daggerboard, dropping the center of gravity deep below the hull. This was not about adding weight for bragging rights. This was physics. Writing moment equals ballast times distance from the pivot. By concentrating mass as low as possible, he effectively doubled the boat's resistance to rolling. With the bulb, the Potter's writing moment jumped from a weekend sailor's comfort zone into the territory of offshore cruisers. The boat's tendency to pop upright after a knockdown was not theoretical anymore, it was measurable. Naval architects would call it a GZ curve. Teplow just called it insurance. The modification did not make the hull pretty, it made it stubborn. Critics who called the Potter a toy missed the fact that, underwater, it was now packing the same punch as boats twice its size. The lead bulb did not just tip the scales, it flipped the odds. Suddenly, the so-called bathtub had a secret weapon bolted to its belly. A chunk of lead that turned ridicule into respect, at least among those who understood what mattered when the horizon was empty and the wind would not quit. July 21st, 2002. Bill Teplow sits at the tiller, hands steady, eyes fixed on the mouth of San Francisco Bay. The city disappears behind a wall of fog and steel as the boat slips under the Golden Gate Bridge. The West Wight Potter. 19 shudders in the tide, fiberglass humming with each swell. There is no fanfare, just the low growl of distant freighters and the slap of water against a hull barely longer than a pickup truck. Beyond the bridge, the Pacific stretches out. 2,000 miles of open water, no shelter, no second chances. Once you cross that line, there is no turning back. The breakwater falls away and the noise of the city dies, replaced by the pulse of the ocean. On shore, the yacht crowd is still laughing. But out here, the only thing that matters is what the hull can take. Teplow's resolve is set. The The Potter's bow points west. The commute has begun. Provisioning for the Pacific isn't about comfort, it's about survival. Bill Teplow packed 40 days of food, every can vacuum sealed and double bagged to keep salt water out and rust at bay. Each meal is a calculation: calories, weight, space. Water is rationed with the same precision. 26 gallons are stowed in plastic jugs, enough for just over a quart per day if nothing spills. The supplies alone add more than 300 pounds to the boat, pushing the limits of what a hull this small can carry without dragging. There is no fridge, no freezer, just shelves lined with shrink-wrapped cans and bags. Every inch matters. Out here, there is no backup, no radar, no satellite phone, no way to call for help if things go sideways. The only voices are the ones in your head. Days blur into nights, marked by the hiss of the stove and the slow count of meals disappearing from the stash. Fatigue creeps in, not just from steering, but from the relentless quiet, the sense of being a single dot surrounded by 1,000 miles of nothing. Every decision is final. Every mistake is yours alone. In this vastness, the line between foresight and folly is razor thin. The Pacific does not care if you are tired. Out here, the system is always on the edge, man and machine locked together, each exposing the other's limits. Bill relied on a basic tiller pilot, a device that draws about 1.5 amps while it is running. In a boat this size, with batteries sized for weekends, not weeks, every amp hour is a countdown. The hum of the autopilot becomes a lifeline, but it is a fragile one. As the days grind on, the charge drops. The sun disappears behind squalls, the solar panel output dips, and the digital readout starts to look like a warning sign. If the batteries quit, so does the autopilot. That means no more sleep, no more hot meals, just hand on the tiller hour after hour until the mind starts to slip. Bill does not panic. He starts rationing power, shutting down everything but the essentials. He rigs a backup, a rope system to lash the tiller, a mechanical compromise that buys him a few precious minutes of rest at a time. Fatigue gnaws at the edges. There is no crew to spell him, no radio check-ins, just the endless slap of water and the knowledge that the next failure could be final. In this box-sized hull, vulnerability is not an idea. It is the reality of every passing minute. The hull's real defense is not its size or its weight, it is the way it handles energy. The hard chines, running along the Potter's sides, act like brakes in the water. When a wave hits, those sharp corners catch and slow the roll, bleeding off momentum before it can flip the boat. It is not about brute force, it is about geometry. Instead of sliding and tumbling like a round-bottomed cruiser, the Potter snaps upright, refusing to stay down. Inside the hull, closed cell foam fills the voids beneath the bunks and cockpit. Even if the sea poured in, the boat would float high, stubbornly unsinkable. That is not marketing. Potter owners have swamped their boats on purpose just to prove the point. Over 24 days and 2,142 nautical miles, this so-called bathtub averaged 4 knots through the trades. When it finally reached Hilo, every bulkhead and fitting supplied by the factory was still intact. 0 failures. Not a single piece of critical hardware gave up. The physics of survival, hard Chinese for stability, foam for buoyancy, and a hull that shrugs off the ocean's worst without complaint. Physics does not care about price tags. As more sailors trust marketing over math, the real advantage belongs to those who understand the hull beneath them. Every marina still hides overlooked tools, unsinkable, ugly, unstoppable. The ocean rewards preparation, not pedigree. Maybe it is time we reward it too.